Yes, everybody, welcome back to the Irish Hotspur. Jack here, and we're going to be talking about the conundrum that Ange Postecoglou will have in picking his backup goalkeeper for the time being while Vicario is out injured. It's a real shame. Feels like we Spurs fans just can't really have nice things. Why can't we just celebrate a nice win for at least 48 hours with having to deal with the next part of the roller coaster, the next dip in this journey under Ange Postecoglou? But this is going to be a real test for the squad as well as what and just going to have to deal with. And I do really feel for him after a big win like that. It is tough that he has to make this decision because I don't think any of the options are necessarily ideal between Fraser Forster, Brandon Austin, and Luca Gunter. But let me know in the comments which one is your preference if you were to be able to be in his position to pick the goalkeeper. And we'll of course trust with whatever Ange goes with. But I think this is not going to be. I don't think this is going to be an easy decision for him. And so let's lay out maybe the positives, the negatives of each of the options available to him. Smash that like button for me, please. And like I said, please get into those comments. Let's start off first with Fraser Forster. My thing is with Forster is that I think we've seen the decline of his goalkeeping abilities in a lot of areas. I think when it comes to his shot stopping, isn't making the quick reflexes type saves that you get from someone with like a Vicario. And also just in general, he has like a bit of nervousness about him that doesn't really fill me with a ton of confidence when it comes to anything that's low, down towards his feet. He's very, very slow to get down. People have used that tree reference, which, as much as it is probably slightly harsh, I don't think it's necessarily inaccurate when it comes to some of his attempts at trying to make a save. And the only thing that I really think he offers is that he's probably the most experienced goalkeeper that you could have really as a backup goalkeeper. The guy's been around the block. He's played for some big clubs. He's also played in the Premier League. He knows what it's like, being a backup goalkeeper, being a starting goalkeeper. He understands the responsibilities, he understands the pressures. But I just don't really rate much of Forster's ability at this time. I do think he is starting to show the signs of being a guy that might not be able to make it at this sort of level anymore. He might have to take a step down to League Two, maybe League One. That could be harsh. Maybe I am being. We'll see if he proves me wrong. He had a great game against Azad Alkmaar, but then, in my opinion, had a very sketchy game against Galatasaray. And also, you would say, I think he had a pretty sketchy game against Coventry City as well. But we'll find out and see if he is good enough in these next few games. My fear is that if he doesn't end up playing well while Vicario is out, Ange Postecoglou will have another decision to make about the goalkeeper because if Fraser Forster ends up making mistakes, maybe ends up costing us in possession, gives the ball away in a bad area. He had that tendency in the Coventry City game, straight away almost gave away a goal from being forced to play out from the back. And he also had some other sketchy moments, if I recall, in the Galatasaray game. And just in general, doesn't really strike you with a ton of confidence when he is being put under pressure. Basically, if Forster just starts making mistakes, whether it's in possession or whether it comes to his ability to make saves and keep goals out of our own net, I think there could likely, just because I don't have a ton of confidence in Forster, it's only my opinion at the end of the day, there could likely come a point where he might have to make another decision about who is the best possible candidate to take over for the time being while Vicario was out. And that would then move him on to Brandon Austin or Luca Gunter. And in the case of Brandon Austin, maybe better goalkeeper just in general than Fraser Forster since he's younger, a little bit more spry. I just think he might have the better chance of making more athletic saves that will be required every now and again. Also, playing out from the back, I'm not too sure how much better or worse he is than Fraser Forster, but I'm not sure if he's really that much worse. And I'm curious if he can, be able to develop that maybe better than Fraser Forster is, just because he's, again, a younger goalkeeper, perhaps from a different generation where he was already working on that type of part of his game, perhaps more than Fraser ever was. And so there is maybe a case that Brandon Austin might be just technically right now, even though we're not really talking about a high bar here, could already be a better goalkeeper than Fraser Forster is. The thing is that he doesn't have the experience that Fraser Forster does. And that could be really crucial because Brandon Austin, for me, while he did have, I think, a decent preseason, you do look at those, some of the mistakes that he did make. I remember in the K League game, I think he made two mistakes versus the K League 11 over the summer. One of them was just the first goal they scored. If you want to go back and watch it, it's just a really poor parry, and he just parries it right in front of the oncoming striker just to tap it in the back of the net. And it's a really poor save, or it took him forever to get down, ends up making a poor save of it, and it just leads to a tap and that just shouldn't have been a goal. And then later, I think for the third goal, he comes out to try to claim a cross, but then doesn't really punch it far enough, kind of leaves himself stranded, and then the guy pulls off, if you remember it, a worldy of a strike that leads to a goal. for the K League 11 team, which I think then you could sort of, even though it's being probably a tad bit harsh, I think you could kind of put on the likes of Brandon Austin there, because if he is going to come out and claim that, you can't just leave your net that wide open. And then also, and again, this is just being super harsh because there's only so much evidence that we have available to us. There's only so many times that Brandon Austin has even played in goals that we've actually seen. The other time I remember where he made a pretty bad mistake was in that really silly post season friendly, if you recall, against Newcastle. There was that goal where Jacob Murphy, taking it down the byline, ends up, I think, firing it at Brendan Austin, doesn't make a good save of it. I think it eventually goes towards Izak and it ends up going in the back of the net. But I remember it wasn't a great attempt of a save by Brandon Austin, and parried it, I remember, right in the pathway of Izak when he really shouldn't have. The thing is, though, is that he's probably, in my opinion, debatably better goalkeeper right now, ability wise, than Fraser Forster. It's just that he doesn't have the experience, and big games. Will he be able to handle the pressure that comes with playing in real life scenario games compared to the preseason friendly, postseason friendly kind of garbage games that he's really only given? And so that's a big worry for me with Brandon Austin. Is would he actually be able to handle the pressure and be able to handle that step up? And he's never really been called, to loan moves or anything to other clubs to get experience in big games. So it's just a big worry of mine. Last and certainly not least, we could talk about Luka Gunter. In Luka Gunter's case, he's the least experienced out of all of them, but he's probably the most talented out of all of them. And he is probably the most suitable for what Ange wants from his goalkeeper. He can be more of a sweeper keeper. If you've ever watched the under 21s, he's made some incredible last minute type saves, clearances, whatever it may be. He's a good one-on-one shot stopper. He's pulled off some pretty crack saves in the under 21s, both last year as well as also this season, to keep them in games. And so I think Luka Gunter kind of suits Ange Ball for that reason, whereas Vicario has to make tons of kind of crack saves on a regular basis to keep us in games. Luka Gunter has done that for the under 21s, whereas you would say in the case of Brendan Austin or Fraser Forster, they don't have that experience or even, let's say, that ability. And the other thing as well is playing out from the back. And Luka Gunter, I think, is better at playing out from the back than probably either Brandon Austin or Fraser Forster. I've seen him play out from the back under pressure in under 21 games, and he looks quite good. And even in the time that he had his little minutes, I think in the QPR game, I believe it was, he looked all right actually, playing out from the back, coming and claiming crosses and making saves. He was put under a bit of pressure there, and I thought he handled it quite well, Luka Gunter. And so for me, I think he's actually the most suited, has the most attributes that makes sense for a Vicario replacement for the time being. It's just that the goalkeeper position is not normally one that you play around with. It's not normally one that you just throw in a youngster, just for the sake of it. I think you can get away with that. You don't really want to do that, but you can get away with that, at least in my opinion, more in like a left wing, kind of maybe attacking type position, forward type area, perhaps even midfield to a degree, maybe some areas of the defense. But goalkeeper seems like the last position on earth you would just want to throw someone into the fire for and see how they swim, see how they do. And Luka Gunter in this situation, I think that's what he'd be doing. He'd be putting a lot of pressure on his shoulders, feel like it'd be really hurting his confidence, could even hurt his development a little bit. But there is a case to make that he actually might be the most capable out of all the other goalkeeper options when it comes to what Ange Postecoglou does want from his goalkeepers. So let me know, everybody. I don't think any of the options are ideal. I think at the end of the day, Ange will lean on Fraser Forster first. He has the most experience, seems to be the designated backup for right now until the end of this season. And then I think we'll look to probably bring in someone probably in January, at least it looks like right now, or in the summer. And Fraser Forster will probably be given the nod at first. But if he ends up making some big, big mistakes, that's why I brought up these other goalkeepers. We'll have to think about which one is the next best option between Brandon Austin and Luka Gunter. I'm pretty sure Alfie Whiteman's just out of the consideration entirely. But let me know, everybody, your thoughts down below. Not the most ideal sort of conversations, let's be honest. Not really a great one. I wish we could be talking about much more positive things, much more better scenarios, but it is something that's kind of really struck, everybody off guard, and it's something we just have to reconcile with and something we have to come up with answers for. So let me know in the comments which is your preference that and should go for, and which one you have the most confidence in. I don't really have confidence in many of the options, but that's what I've laid out for you guys. And if I were to go with someone, if Forster ends up making some big mistakes, I think I start with Forster. But if he ends up making some big mistakes that start costing us, I think I would actually lean towards Luka Gunter instead of of Brandon Austin. But we'll see if we have to come over to that conversation. Just a little precursor for something later that hopefully we don't have to talk about. And I'll see you next time. I'll see you for all the match day festivities. Come on, you Spurs. In the big Ange we trust. We never stop. See you next time.